Hey everybody, it's Alfred Parsar Jr. Here with a Metropolitan Report short. Um, after we do our full episode of Metropolitan Report, normally we'll release videos throughout the week relating to what we spoke about in the previous video. But I figured here to touch on something that, yes, happened during the Mets broadcast in the game against the Cubs last night, but also it's bigger than baseball. So last night, the Mets played the Cubs in Chicago, and there was a point in the game where Matt Shaw came up to bat against Huascar Brazaban, and Gary Cohen made some comments about Shaw in reference to Charlie Kirk, as Matt Shaw had attended Charlie Kirk's funeral. Now, for those of you who don't know, Charlie Kirk was a podcaster and political commentator. I'm not going to get into any of the politics of it, of who he was as a person, or the views or that he represented, or his beliefs, or anything that has come out of his mouth. If you know, you know, and if you don't, you don't. But Gary Cohen made some comments in reference to Matt Shaw attending Charlie Kirk's funeral. And we've seen it in recent times. And again, this is outside of baseball. Just recently, Jimmy Kimmel, the late night stand-up comedian, made a comment in reference, not about Charlie Kirk, but he referenced Charlie Kirk. Didn't say anything disrespectful, and he was suspended indefinitely from his show on ABC, Late Night with Jimmy Kimmel, which has since been reinstated due to fan backlash over the cancellation of his show. And I've been seeing online all day that a lot of people are upset with the fact that Gary Cohen mentioned this. But for full context, let me show you guys the clip of what Gary Cohen and Todd Zeal. Now, Todd Zeal's not getting any backlash from this. He called the game with Gary Cohen yesterday because Ron Darling and Keith Hernandez did not make the trip to Chicago to Wrigley. But here's the full clip of what was said, and we'll talk about it after.
Home fourth inning. Huascar Brazaban's retired 5 in a row. Matt Shaw leads off for the Cubs. He had a base hit his first time up. Shaw had Cubs World in a tizzy this weekend when he was not here for the Cubs game with the Reds. Game they lost 1-0, and in which his lack of presence was felt. It was later revealed that he had been given permission to attend Charlie Kirk's funeral. And I don't want to talk about any of the politics of it, but the thought of leaving your team in the middle of a race for any reason other than a family emergency really strikes me as weird.
It's unusual. I think it's unprecedented, at least from my experience as a player. And I think it made it a little bit more unusual that it was not revealed until after it came to issue, because he was thought to be in the dugout and maybe available, and then was not, and that's how it was revealed. So it became maybe more of a story than it could have been had it been addressed from the beginning.
Shaw strikes out to start the inning. Do you think the fact that he's a rookie changes the equation at all? It makes it more or less egregious?
As I said, I think that's something that would certainly be unusual during my era. But then again, there was no paternity leave. There was no bereavement leave when I played at all. You showed up and, just found a way to get through work. But that has changed. That has changed.
Well, but I thought it was telling that the reason that they didn't tell anybody and that they had to play a man short was that the situation did not qualify for baseball's bereavement list.
Bereavement is direct.
Got to be family. So
right.
I think that in and of itself gives you a clue as to how it was received by a lot of people. In any event.
So as you guys see, and first thing I want to point out, Gary Cohen specifically said, I don't want to get into the politics of it. He's keeping it strictly sports here. And Gary didn't say anything wrong. He gave his opinion. His opinion was backed up by fact by Todd Zeal. And this is what he said, basically. He disagrees with the fact and finds it weird that the Cubs allowed Matt Shaw to attend Charlie Kirk's funeral when the Cubs are basically in a pennant race and Matt Shaw is an integral part of the team. It's not like he's the 26th man on the roster, or he's a guy who just got called up who's not going to get any playing time. He's their everyday first baseman. And then by rule, because Major League Baseball does have a bereavement list, and by rule, MLB official rule, the bereavement list states that an MLB player can be placed on the bereavement list for a minimum of 3 days and maximum of 7 days to attend to a death or serious illness in their immediate family or their spouse's immediate family. The purpose of the bereavement list is to cover family emergencies, which Gary Cohen and Todd Zeal cited when they said what they said about Matt Shaw. Again, I and some people online, I've read that Matt Shaw and Charlie Kirk were friends, and, but the Cubs also went about it in a very sneaky way. Because if a player is going to have an excused absence like that to attend a funeral, he has to qualify for bereavement. And the Cubs, when they played the Reds that day, they made it seem, and Gary Cohen and Todd Zeal alluded to this too, they made it seem that Matt Shaw was just on the bench or in the clubhouse, unavailable. They didn't replace him on the roster. They just made it seem like he was unavailable, and nobody found out that he attended his funeral until after the fact. So the Cubs organization is in the wrong here too. But what simply gets me upset is that I've seen on social media, whether it's X, Instagram, even YouTube videos, people here are slamming Gary Cohen. Gary Cohen kept it strictly baseball. What is there to be upset about? It's not like he mocked to death. It's not like he said, well, let's celebrate. No, he didn't mention anything about the man's politics, whether he agreed with the man's viewpoints or not. Gary Cohen simply stated, and again, I can't stress this enough, he said he is not going to get into politics when he said what he said. He did not say anything disrespectful to Charlie Kirk, or about Charlie Kirk, rather. He didn't say anything inflammatory. All he said was he did not agree with Matt Shaw attending a funeral of a non-family member in a non-family emergency situation during a pennant race. That's Gary Cohen's opinion. It is a baseball sports opinion, and he is entitled to that opinion. Nothing that Gary Cohen said in that commentary on that baseball game was inflammatory. Nothing he said was disrespectful. Nothing he said was in ill faith. Nothing he said was in bad spirits. He simply gave his opinion on a baseball player who went to a funeral but wasn't put on the bereavement list, and both the player and his organization did not follow MLB protocol. That's all he spoke about. And even though he said he did not agree with it, he never once said that Matt Shaw was wrong. He just said he didn't agree. And there are things that you can disagree with people on and not necessarily tell them that they're wrong. You can be right. People can, in many situations, people can do something and I can disagree even if it's the right thing to do, because there's multiple things. I mean, there's multiple ways to mourn. He could have watched the funeral service. I believe it was streamed. He could have, he could have mourned privately. He chose to go to the funeral. I mean, if that's his friend, that's his choice, but it breaks MLB protocol. And this is the bigger issue here. It seems that if something appears to be anything anti on that side, and again, this is the Metropolitan Report. This is a podcast that deals in New York Mets baseball. Gary Cohen is the voice of the Mets TV broadcast, so it's apropos that I talk about this. I never normally talk about politics, but it always seems that when somebody says anything that can be slightly interpreted as anti that side, all of a sudden they want to get cancel culture and the firing squad. For a group of people who are so free speech this, free speech that, and one of their comrades who unfortunately was murdered in front of many people, which, is I could never condone anything, not even to I can't even wish that on my worst enemy, the way that he went out. But for a man who represented free speech, here's Gary Cohen, a sports broadcaster. Mind you, he's been calling Met games on television and radio since the mid to late 90s. Here is a guy utilizing the same free speech, not saying anything disrespectful, not saying anything in ill taste. And people are calling for his job. You can go ahead and play the clip back as many times as you want. Nothing that was said was wrong or disrespectful. It wasn't even about Charlie Kirk. It was about Matt Shaw, and he simply attended Kirk's funeral. That's the only reason why Charlie Kirk's name was even uttered. If Matt Shaw would have went to Bob Smith or Jimmy Anderson's funeral, Gary Cohen's tune would have been the same. Basically, all he's talking about here, and again, it doesn't have to be Charlie Kirk. It could have been anybody. But he basically said, it's not a family member. It's not a family emergency. You're in a pennant race. What are you doing? But because it just so happened to be Charlie Kirk, now the world is in an uproar. Now Gary Cohen should be canceled. Now he should be suspended. Now he should be fired. Oh, it was in bad taste. He shouldn't have said anything at all. Well, if he shouldn't have said anything at all, there goes his free speech, right? They say that Charlie Kirk was a champion of free speech. But yet, when Gary Cohen exercised his right to free speech, is looked down upon. Similar to Jimmy Kimmel, Cohen said nothing wrong. Now, I hope that Gary Cohen doesn't face any type of repercussion from this. The Mets play the Cubs in a little over an hour at 8:05. Gary Cohen will be on the call if you watch the SNY broadcast. But if you feel that Gary Cohen should be fired for what he said or should face some type of punishment, you're out of your mind. But this just goes to show that when you say something about the other side, even if it's not anything bad, but you don't agree with it, you're an enemy. Long gone are the days of agreeing to disagree. It's like if you disagree with anything that they do, or you say something that they disagree with, now all of a sudden you're an enemy. you shouldn't have a job on the air. And that's wrong. Now, I can like I said, I can understand if Gary Cohen said something disrespectful. And I get it. That's Matt Shaw's friend. They texted after Cubs games. Charlie Kirk grew up in Illinois. I believe he grew up a Cubs fan, whatever. But the Cubs manipulated the MLB rules to allow Shaw to go. Didn't replace him on the roster. Didn't put him on the bereavement list. Him going to this funeral is not even bereavement eligible. Again, as Todd Zeal and Gary Cohen stated. They were just pointing out that the Cubs and Shaw got around baseball protocol. I don't see anything wrong with that. If it would have been a PED suspension or a case of domestic violence that got swept under the rug and they said something about it, nobody would be batting an eye to it. But because they mentioned the name of this man who has become idolized by the people on a particular side of politics, now it's wrong because Gary Cohen criticized a friend of this man. Again, nothing disrespectful was said. And again, I don't like to get into politics, but I felt it has to be said because, again, Gary Cohen's the voice of the New York Mets. The TV voice, anyway. Howie Rose is the radio voice. And even Howie Rose on the radio broadcast made similar statements. But I guess because fewer people listen to the radio and, if you're not in the New York area, you can't listen to the radio broadcast to begin with unless you know where to find it. But just because Gary Cohen mentioned this person, and because it was this person's funeral Matt Shaw went to, it's a problem that he said something that wasn't agreeable. I remember a time when if you had a difference of opinion, it didn't matter. Oh, this guy, he said this and that. All right, we just won't listen to him. And as long as it wasn't offensive or as long as it wasn't homophobic or racist, it wouldn't get you canceled that you thought opposite of somebody else. Or that if it wasn't promoting hate. Gary Cohen did none of those things. And yet people are calling for him to get off the air, calling for his job, saying that he's wrong. And you know what? I'm tired of this whole thing. Like I said, it happened to Jimmy Kimmel. It happened to Gary Cohen. And I'm sure Gary Cohen and Jimmy Kimmel won't be the last. Anybody who says anything mentioning this gentleman, if the fans of that gentleman or his political party don't agree with it, they're going to come after you too. Hell, they might come after me. And I'm just a baseball YouTuber. They might come after me for making this video, and I'm not saying anything wrong or disrespectful. The selective cancel culture, when one side gets outraged, especially when they champion free speech, is such BS to me. And it shouldn't be this way. And to simply just analyze something that a baseball player did and people disagree with your opinion simply because of whose funeral he went to. Because again, if it was Jimmy Smith or Bob Anderson, we wouldn't even have a point of contention here. But Gary Cohen should face no repercussions. He did nothing wrong. He said nothing wrong. And that just goes to show how sensitive that particular side is. And it really, when I woke up this morning, it really bothered me to see all this vitriol towards Gary Cohen, who has been a consummate professional ever since he stepped foot in the Mets broadcast booth. Never has been an issue. Never has said anything. He's not like a Tom Brenneman who made a racial slur and called a home run during his apology. He's not like other broadcasters who slipped the N-word in when they said that they went to the Negro League Museum before they covered a Kansas City Royals game and use the N-word instead of the word Negro. Gary Cohen has never done anything egregious, never used profanity on air, never known to be a hurtful person. And you have all these people on X saying how Gary Cohen is a bad person and he should lose a job, basically making Gary Cohen seemingly a pariah of baseball broadcasters. And that's wrong. It's wrong. Again, go back and rewind the clip. He said nothing wrong. And I know I'm repeating myself and beating a dead horse, but it just angers me that we are in a point in time where even if you say nothing wrong, but you disagree with somebody on the other side, all of a sudden you're this bad person and you should lose a job, and you don't have a right to free speech, even though they champion free speech and they stand up for free speech. But you know what? That side stands up for free speech, unless it's free speech against them or something they've done or something they believe in. But I'm going to wrap up this Metropolitan Report short. My last words on this subject are leave Gary Cohen alone. He's done nothing wrong. He's a phenomenal broadcaster. And, many of people have said much worse about other things and still have their jobs. Gary Cohen did nothing wrong. He basically just analyzed a baseball player bending the MLB rules or sneaking under the rule book to go to a funeral. It just so happens that it was the funeral of this particular person. But anyway, this is the Metropolitan Report. Don't forget to go down below, hit the subscribe button on YouTube, and we'll be bringing you content throughout the week, folks.